session, we're going to talk about resolving critical unit issues. And it's kind of an important topic to me. I was very impressed with what Jared had to say in his class when he was talking about the onboarding, because as commissioners, we have a lot of responsibility, especially in this particular area. So beginning with, I want to jump to the first slide here. In parting resolving this issue, this is what you're going to be able to learn. We're going to be able to identify when a unit has a critical issue. You're going to be able to work through process to develop action. You're going to be able to provide practical experience in solving the issue. Now, with those three things, I've put up this slide, and I'd like to have all of you take your phone, if you've got one, take a picture of this slide, because we're going to use this a lot in some scenarios that we're going to be doing. If there were a way that I could send it out to you, I would. But like we were talking about in Sandra's class, us baby boomers just don't have that intellect when it comes to the technology of today's world. And so anyway, if you can do that, then we can move forward. Has everybody got that? Okay, so I'm going to put up our first. What does this mean? What is a critical issue? Any thoughts? Anyone like to talk about this for just a second? What is a critical issue?
I think it's an issue that affects scouts, their families, leaders. It's not just a unit, but it's more a societal thing, I believe.
Okay, very good. And that's very true, because it's everybody. It's everything that's going on within the unit, either it be a leader, a parent, the youth, you name it. It could be anything. So with that said, here's our first scenario. Using the matrix system that I've just given you, read this out. You and everyone else show up for the PAC meeting, and the Cub Master doesn't. You hear that this has happened a couple of times before. Okay, think about it for a couple of seconds, and then let's talk about it. Using the scenario, where does this fit? Anyone?
I think it's pretty critical.
Okay.
You don't have one of your main leaders show up.
Okay. That's really very critical, right? The Cub Master's not there, so what we're going to do? There should be a plan in place for when them young men and young ladies get there. There should be a pre-activity going on before the meeting starts. Then when the meeting starts, it goes from there. And then they can go into their breakouts. So having a Cub Master not there is extremely important. If it's happened before, how would you fix the issue?
I think the issue is more on the committee right now. If the Cub Master is not there, is the assistant Cub Masters there? You know, where assignments made. We know that in our busy lives, the primary leader cannot always be there all the time. And so was there a delegation done? How was the committee supporting that Cub Master? And if not, why are they keeping the Cub Master around? If that's a continued.
Okay, good point. But you suggested something there that became very critical. If they had an assistant Cub Master, the assistant Cub Master should have taken over. Does everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe the Cub Master in itself had made the assignments, and the Cub Master should have been taken over. But in reality, granted, Jimmy, there should have been a plan, so that the Cub Master would have given it to the assistant Cub Master. If the assistant either couldn't make it either, somebody should have known what was going on. And so that the meeting could have gone ahead and gone forward as planned, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
this comes down to communication and expectations.
Exactly.
we're all have busy lives, and maybe the Cub Master is just getting home from work and the traffic's being held up, can't make it to the meeting. What's the plan? Can they pull over and send a quick text to the committee chair or the assistant Cub Master saying, I'm running late, start the meeting without me? But without that communication, you don't know what's going on, and you just fear the worst. You assume it's that he doesn't care, versus maybe there's a circumstance that has prevented it, and how can we address that? It's about that communication.
Correct. Okay, we're going to move on here. There's a process to this whole thing. You got to recognize first that there is a problem. You got to identify the cause of the problem. You've got to determine the action that you're going to take. You need to act. Now, this is very important. You need to act on once you come to identify what the problem is. And then you review the results, and then you make the adjustments. And these are very critical issues when you go through this whole process. So we got to recognize the problem, identify the cause, determine the action, act, and then review the results. And then you adjust to what your needs are. Then at this point, you continue to monitor the unit in itself. Is everything going to plan according to what you had recognized what the problem was? You identified it, you determined the action, and then you acted upon it. Now are they moving forward as they should? Any questions? Okay. With this process, I want you to take a look at this picture. What's the problem?
Somebody's being left out.
Exactly.
They're twiddling their thumbs.
He's twiddling his thumbs. He's not being part of the group. So if you're seeing this problem with what we just said, what would your actions be?
What's my role? Because if my role is a scout master, I would ask my senior patrol leader to see what can be done.
All righty. Thank you, Sandra, because that was the exact answer I was looking for.
I promise I didn't read this beforehand.
Okay. So you go to the scout master to get the senior patrol leader involved, and then let him go over and find out, is there something going on, John? Can we help you in any way? Why don't you come on over and join the group? If he still doesn't want to, then maybe the senior patrol leader and John can be doing something else. At least he's being involved and engaged in something. Okay. So this is part of the process. We've got to recognize it, and we can see it really quick if we're paying attention. Okay. Now, as commissioners, part of our jobs is, this is one of the reasons why we make our unit visits, especially unit commissioners. When they go out to make the unit visits, they can see what's going on, and they should be able to assess and then sit down with the key three and say, this is what I see. What are your recommendations? Okay, moving on. Through this process, there's two things that you need to do. You've got to identify the cause. First of all, you've got to listen, but then you've got to talk about it. You can't just let it go. You've got to be able to see and hear, listen to what is being said from the leaders, and then talk about, okay, what are we going to do to resolve the issue to help the unit to move forward positively, not negatively, but positively. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, moving forward. Now we're going to determine the action. Who do we consult with? Give me your thoughts. Who is it that we consult with? It says others, but when we say others, who are they?
Committee chair.
Committee
Parents.
chair. What was that, Sandra?
Parents.
Parents.
I think as a unit commissioner, we also need to discuss it going up. ADCs would be an ideal person to gain from their experiences to help us if we're an inexperienced unit commissioner.
Okay,
Maybe roundtable.
maybe roundtable. But here's my thoughts to you, and this is what on this particular slide, what I was more getting at is that in every unit, you have a key three, correct? Who are the key three? Can you tell me
Scout
who they are?
leader, whoever unit it is, and then the chairman and
Okay, committee chairman is one,
COR
the COR, the chartered organizational rep,
and your scoutmaster
and the scoutmaster.
or cubmaster.
Okay, or the cub master. Those are the three that should be involved in consulting on determining what actions should take place. Okay, you have identified the problem when you visited the unit. Now you sit down and you discuss, okay, how are we going to resolve the issue at hand? Now, realizing we have to getting back to the slide that we talk and we listen. Listen to what they're having to say, because they may be giving you the answer that's needed. Okay, and then you talk about the issue. Moving forward, any questions on this slide? Okay. The process is to act. Now, this is very important. I talked about this before. We've got to implement whatever action that we're going to take to help resolve the issue that's going on within the unit. You have to, one, establish as a priority unit. Identify most critical issues. Let me ask you a question. Going back to the slide that had the scout just twiddling his thumb, was that a critical issue? Yes? No? Okay, yes, it was. Okay, moving on. We've got to be supportive. We need to understand and be supportive of the actions that's being presented to us. Support whatever that action may be. As a commissioner, that really is part of our responsibility, is to be supportive. Now, here's scenario one again. I want you to use the matrix again. We're going to go back to, you receive a call from the district commissioner stating that the crew has not met in the last month. You are asked to look into it. What do you do? Okay, using your matrix, where does this fall into?
critical.
Questions?
Aye.
Fitting in number 5. Aye? Why? Why would you say aye?
If they're not meeting, nothing's getting done.
Okay. Anyone else?
It depends, maybe the time of year.
It could
As-
be, yeah.
In the winter time, if it just snowed, maybe they didn't meet, or in the summer, they're taking the summer off. I don't think I have enough information yet to determine if this is critical.
Okay.
I would want to reach out to the crew advisor
Okay.
and find out.
Thank you. Because that basically is an answer that we're looking for. In this category, it's kind of vague, because in reality, as Sandra said, we'd want to reach out to the advisor and find out why was there not a meeting last week. And then whatever the answer may be, if it's something that's simple, then we say, okay, do you have a meeting scheduled for this month? What time and where are you going to meet? And as a commissioner, you could say, I'd like to be there with you to be part of the activity. So this issue or this scenario in itself, we're not sure, because it's kind of gray, as Sandra said, because, okay, we missed a meeting, but just because we missed a meeting doesn't necessarily mean that there is a critical issue that's going on. So, but who makes the phone call? Anybody?
The unit commissioner.
Unit commissioner.
Correct. It would be the unit commissioner, because he would need to find out what's going on, find out from the crew leader, and then take it from there. All righty. Moving on to the next.
Larry, before you go on,
Yes,
to me, the issue is not as much with the unit as with the unit commissioner. Why is the district commissioner asking unit commissioner why they're not meeting when that unit commissioner should be meeting with them on that monthly
What's going on?
basis? And so I'm having a hard time, you ought to know the unit commissioners are not going to be meeting or not.
okay. And that is true, because technically the unit commissioner should be visiting the unit at least what? Once a month. So, but if they didn't have a chance to meet that month, and then he gets a call saying, hey, I'm Sam Jones and I belong to the crew, and we didn't have a meeting last month and I wasn't notified. Can you tell me what's going on? So then, Jimmy, as the unit commissioner, then you would call the crew member or the crew leader to find out, okay, why was there not a meeting? Now, you as a unit commissioner may not know, because you may not have had a chance to meet with him. That makes sense?
Well, it does in the sense that as a unit commissioner, if going back to the communication issue we talked before, if you're on the email list of that unit, if you have that relationship, you're not going to be caught by surprise. I'm going back to my military background. I hated it when my battalion commander asked me as a company commander why something didn't happen, because I should have known that. And so that's kind of how I look at this unit commissioner business. You've got to, once a month is not enough.
No, it's not. But a lot of times, like Sandra was saying, because of time and involvement that everybody has, we may not have that time to meet as many times as we would like. But preferably, as it's dictated, we should at least meet once a month. Okay. With that one being said, let's move on to the next. Here's another scenario. While visiting Troop 443, you notice that the Scoutmaster leads the meeting and organizes all activities. The parents say the committee tries to help, but the Scoutmaster is in charge. They say the youth had a patrol leaders council, but the Scoutmaster took over the meeting and the youth lost interest. Attendance is dropping and youth are leaving. Using the matrix, where does this fall in? Anybody?
Well, you have a lot more information here. It sounds like the critical issue because the Scoutmaster is leading and the youth are not leading.
Correct. This because all units should be youth led, correct?
Yep.
And so, except for what?
Except for the Cub Scouts.
Cub Scout
Except for the
pack.
Cub Scouts. In the troop, in the crew, in the ship, they should be all youth led. So if the Scoutmaster is actually taking over the meeting, he's making up all the activities. So nobody knows what's going on. So now we're going to start getting calls from parents. Our kid's not coming anymore because he's just not finding it interesting. There's nothing happening or going on. So at this point, what should we do as commissioners on this scenario? Kenneth, I haven't heard from you.
Well, I'm a little quiet today. It definitely needs to be resolved. I'm not sure if we should be speaking to to try to work it out or actually nice way. The Scoutmaster say, hey, you need a little bit more training here, but
Okay, but who?
and get it so the youth do in fact run meetings.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think it should be to start with the Scoutmaster, make sure he's trained
Okay.
find out what's going on. But I also think that the committee and the rest of the leadership needs to understand that it's not the Scoutmaster's role to do everything, that they need to be helping him. And if he refuses it, then I don't know, maybe a COR action might be needed.
Okay. So the real problem here that, again, we talked about it before, it goes back to the key three. The first person that should be involved with this is who?
Committee chairman.
The committee chairman. He
Your
gets
COR.
advised that there's an issue, and then who does the committee chairman go to?
COR.
The COR. Now you go back to the key three, because the Scoutmaster is part of that COR, or the key three, correct? So with that meeting being held, technically the committee, the COR should say, hey, Tim, you're the Scoutmaster of our wonderful group. And have you been formally trained? If his answer is, well, yeah, I have, I've taken the training, then our response to him is that, you know, that this is supposed to be a youth-led troop, correct? Then you should say to him that maybe you need to sit down with Clay as your SPL, and together you organize it, but he runs the program. You stand back as an advisor. Now, if it continues to, and like you were saying there, Kenneth, if he decides to say, nah, I'm going to run it, then as a COR, then we've got to make a determination. Is it time that we replace him? Do we move on? Or do we sit down and say, hey, listen, these are the findings of what we have talked about as far as a committee, that we think that it'd probably be best for you to step down. So now, so there are tough choices that we have to make in our units. There really are. And we really need to know and have an understanding that when we run into issues like this, that we need to act and resolve it. That's the important thing as commissioners. And that's the one thing that we should do. Okay, here's another scenario. We're gonna do this, and then we're gonna move on real quick. The parent calls the district executive complaining that the PAC does almost nothing compared to the PAC in the next school. You attend a PAC meeting and see that the meeting consists of a flag ceremony, long announcement time, awards, and closing flag. Both the parents and the youth look bored and do not listen to the announcements. Stuart, tell me, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's definitely not an activity involved when they're just presenting awards and then ending the meeting. So,
okay, there was nothing going on, nothing planned, it sounds like.
yeah,
No activities at all. So
go back to the key three.
yeah, go back to the key three. But
Find out.
Again, most of these scenarios that we talk about here end up going back to the key three, because they're the people that are involved. This one should be part of the Cub Master, because the Cub Master, if it's a Cub activity and there's nothing going on, then something needs to be said to the Cub Master, that we need to provide a program, both an activity once they get there, so the kids are out having fun, and then you can come in and do your flag ceremony, have your announcements, and then they go from there where they do their breakout. They go to their different areas, either the bears, the wolves, the cubs, the lions. So the thing of it is that we still need to be, as commissioners, involved and act quickly, not later, because this parent called who? Called the district executive. I mean, they jumped way over the board. And so, and then it was brought down to the COR, basically stating, okay, we got a problem here. Did you know that? So we would have to look into it and say, okay, I'll take care of it and go from there. Okay? Any questions from anybody?
Well, I
Okay.
got a comment.
Yes.
Is having a committee meeting, that includes all the leadership as much as possible, and committee members, for a planning meeting on a monthly basis, kind of determine what might be done for the month, and I'll pretty much dwell on the PAC meeting. Make sure all the people are involved as far as setting up kits, run-ons, etc. Make sure there's assigned to the pre-meeting. I mean, it start somewhere along that way, and then if we have to go to the key 3.
Well, the unit commissioner should actually be involved the key 3. And then if it's serious enough, as we talked about before, then you can meet as a committee to determine what action you're going to take. Does this person need to be released and somebody else assigned? Or do we check into it a little bit further to find out, okay, are they properly trained? If they're properly trained, then they should know that this is the way that the program should work. And so we go to the key 3 first. Then if it gets to the point that you've got to do something more drastic about it, then you bring the committee in and the committee decides at that point in time.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Bill?
All right.
Okay, moving on real quick here. Here's some commissioner tools. Okay, when we see that there's something is wrong, we have got to enter the facts. Okay, because without the facts and you go to report this, you're gonna get a serious talking to. The next thing is explain who, what, when, and where this all took place. What unit was it? When did it happen? On Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday? And who was involved? Give details, give exact details of what just took place within that unit. Okay, now these are notes that you as a commissioner are taking silently off to the side, and then you can come back and discuss them. And then you make sure that the timeline is clear, okay? Do not, and I emphasize, do not be critical, okay? The main thing about scouting and its program is that we're to have fun and we're to have a good time. Now, there's a lot of times that it can become a very, very serious issue, but we never, ever, for an example, when we show up to a unit, do we walk up to them and we start chewing on them? Ever. So we do not be critical. We support them in every way that we can. Prepare a unit's service plan. Okay, did somebody have something to say? Okay, preparing a unit service plan. What problems must be solved? What alternative strategies are available? What strategies are you going to try first? Who will be involved? How will you know if the unit is functioning well? Again, if all else failed, what is plan B? So we should have a plan A, and then we have a plan A or B, okay? And if you notice down in the triangle, it talks about unit assessment. There should be a unit plan, there should be a district commitment, and then we need to implement everything that is talking about here. So there should be a unit service plan. Moving on to the next slide. Okay. Looking at this slide, this is kind of a review of the results, and we adjust and we trade basically. So We change, we modify, we transition, we transform, we shift, we make the adjustment, and it all becomes what? New. So we know what's going on within the unit itself. Any comments on this slide?
I have one comment if I can.
Yes.
Stop, start, continue. That is a big critical thing with all of your committee meetings. Start, stop, and continue.
Correct. Those are three key issues. Okay, now we need to do a follow-up. We should always do a follow-up. We monitor the unit. We find out everything going okay. Is it running smooth? Is it youth-led? Or are there issues? We observe if there is improvement from what we had given them, okay? After we've decided that there were issues. At this point, we communicate progress to the key three, and that's what we talked about earlier. It's important that we realize that that is very important that we communicate with the key three of what's going on within the unit. And then we keep the DC and the ADC informed. Now, back in Jared's class, he talked about the importance of these forms that need to be filled out. This is the only way that the district will know if there's a problem with the unit. If it is not communicated through the ADC, who goes to the DC, and then it goes to the district executive, there is absolutely no way they know what's going on within the unit until it's all said and done. And then it becomes a very serious, critical issue. So we really need to follow up as commissioners. Remember that this is our responsibility as commissioners. We're trained to do so, and we help the unit become what they need to be. A unit that's having fun, that's youth-led, and they're just having a great time in scouting, using the scouting values of the Scout Oath, the law, the motto, and the slogan. Okay? Any questions on this slide? Okay, here's a summary. You should now be able to do these things. Identify when a unit has a critical issue. Work through process to develop action. Okay, we've talked a lot about this, about working through a process to develop the action that we're going to take. Have practical experience in solving issues. I'm going to ask everybody this real simple question. Having practical experience in solving issues. Have any of us or any of you had practical experience in solving issues?
I think that's the life of a scouter.
Okay. That is the life of an scouter, is that we, you know what? We have lots of problems, and and I'll go back even a little further than that. Having practical experience in solving issues, those of us that have families, we've had issues our whole lives with our families, okay? When we get into scouting, it's a little bit different, having practical experience in solving issues, because we need to have some experience down the line, either it be from family, friends, school, whatever, in issues that have come up where we've had a little bit of experience and that we've been able to resolve the issue by using kind of a process plan to help overcome everything that we're facing.
Okay, I
So-
have one question for you.
What are some questions?
Okay, the question would be, you have a scout that comes in, you know, is dangerous to the other scouts. Who do you go to first?
Who do you go to first?
I would go to the Cub Master and the unit commissioner.
Okay, now let me ask you this question. Is this a cub issue, troop issue, crew issue?
Cub issue.
Okay, you should go directly to the Cub Master. Okay,
Okay,
then who does the Cub Master go to?
should go to a COR or the committee chair,
Go to
COR.
the committee chair first,
Yeah, and then the COR
and
from
then the
there.
COR. And if
Mhm.
it's becoming a real critical issue, then it's up to the COR. He can make the determination to either assign it to the Cub Master, to make a phone call to see if they can talk to the parent, to see if there's something there that they can do to help eliminate the problem.
Okay,
Because if it's,
You guys could also hold a quick key 3 meeting about it, so everybody's on the same page.
okay, and you can do that, but most critical is that we need to resolve the issue at hand real quick.
But if all 3 of you are there, then you can all meet at the same time.
That's true. That is very true. So, but getting back to the question, if now this continues with this young man, and I'm going to speak from experience here, I'm going to kind of briefly give you a little bit of a story of a parent who had a son that was involved, but the parent was always complaining that their son was never actively engaged, which was not true. But it happened every week. We got a complaint every week from the parent. So as a key 3, we met and we had to make a determination, okay, because what was happening, it was disrupting everything else down the line, especially with the Cub Master, because she complained a lot about the Cub Master. So the key 3 had to meet together first. They provided a plan. We, what do you call it? What's the word? Implemented the plan, but the plan didn't, well, it kind of worked. So we went to plan B. Plan B didn't work. So then we decided as a key 3, we needed to take this to the committee and find out, okay, where are we going with this? Who makes the ultimate decision at this point? It's the COR. The chartered organizational rep makes the decision. And then he determines the action that's going to take place. Now, it's sometimes we have to do what we've got to do to protect the other youth within the unit. It may become necessary that we say to the parent, Mrs. So-and-so, we're extremely sorry, but we've tried to work with you and your son or your daughter or whatever, but it continues to happen every week. And at this point, we're going to ask you if you'll please drop out of the unit or the pack. Now, those are harsh decisions that have to be made, but we have to make them in order to protect who?
the other
remaining
youth.
And so it's important that those are actions that are taken. And what's really sad about it, she's gone to other units and done the same thing. So she's in reality, and I feel sorry for the young man because he's not getting the opportunity to enjoy the cubbing experience or scouting experience because he's been let go from 3 other units because mom just was not happy. So, with that being said, we have to be, like I was saying, you don't approach it critically at the first. You let the COR and the committee make the decision and then go from there. Any questions from anybody?
I think the parent needs to be involved when you first start having a problem.
Well, and you do, but that's part of plan A, right? Because we made a plan. We had a plan A, which was part of the process. That parent is invited to a meeting with the key three. And with that key three, they're explaining, okay, here's what's going on, and we need your help. We
And have the
really
parent come to the
seriously.
meeting, den meeting,
What's that?
and have the parent come to the den meeting.
Oh, yes. But the problem is, if you have the parent at the den meeting, you don't resolve it at the den meeting. You've got to resolve this off to the side. You can't, because you don't want to do something critical in front of everybody else. That's not the plan. And that's not the way it should be handled at all.
No.
It should be handled as the key three getting involved with the parent being talked to, and then if they don't want to comply, then the actions need to be taken. But that's what's important about resolving issues within the unit. So you are right, Judy, the parent's got to be involved, but the only way we can involve the parent is if the key three get involved, and then we move forward. Okay, I want to take just a moment just to say thank you for joining my class. I hope you've learned something from it, because resolving critical issues in some of the units that I've seen, we have some issues and they need to be resolved, and we need to be resilient in resolving them as commissioners. Thank you for your attendance in the meeting today. Have a great day.